Brave New Radio.
Brave New Radio. Give us your tired, your poor, your hungry, your rockers, your punks, your freaks, your geeks, your Greeks, your party animals, your gangsters, your commuters, your residents, your students, your alums, your lawyers, your truckers, your calls, your tweets. And we'll give you rock, classic, indie, punk, alternative, easy, hard, raps, rhymes, mixes, and drops. We'll give you kick-ass music because we're WPSC 88.7 FM, Brave New Radio. Sound good?
To you. And yes, indeed, once again, it is Saturday morning. And if you can hear the sound of my voice, you're listening to the voice of your host for the next few hours, none other than Marc Medley. We come to you live each Saturday morning, kicking off with the Reading Circle. Then we move on into a different format with the M&M Hour and the Martha and Friends Hour, where we transition into the gospel music, which is the good news in song. And every now and again we may have a Reading Circle doubleheader or a Reading Circle tripleheader, but that's not the case this morning, and my guest is already on the line, so we're going to go through our usual ritual and routine. And before you know it, our interview will be underway. So I'm going to share with you what's going on with the weather here on the East Coast, as my guest is calling from the West Coast. So we have some weather going on here. It's 45.7 degrees right now. It tells me it feels like 46, and yes, it does. It is cool. Expect showers early, then cloudy in the afternoon, a high of 49 and a low of 46. So we're not going to move too much. We have a 60% chance of precipitation during the day, 20% chance of precipitation during the evening. Expected to be mostly cloudy tonight. And then on tomorrow, Sunday, cloudy early with partly sunshine or partial sunshine expected late, high of 59, low of 43, partly cloudy skies on Sunday night. And then on Monday, the sun pops back out. It says mostly sunny skies, high around 65, low of 44, partly cloudy skies Monday night as well. And then on Tuesday, partly cloudy, high of 69, low of 49. Some clouds early in Tuesday night will give way generally to clear conditions overnight. And then on Wednesday, sunny along with a few afternoon clouds, high of 70, low of 48. So it looks like, and I'm not sure, but it looks like the hurricane may very well miss us. Originally it was forecasted to hit us, but it looks like it may very well go around us. And the rain was coming whether the hurricane was coming or not. They said we were going to get that rain whether Joaquin or whatever the hurricane is named this time. Said the rain was coming anyway, and we needed it. We were in drought over here in New Jersey, so we need this rain that's coming. Well, I'll tell you what, as you know, that I read from two books. They are daily devotionals. I read from them each week, and they kick the show off with a positive vein. They are the books What Can Happen When We Pray, as well as Until Today by Iyanla Van Zant. So for today, October the 3rd, from the book What Can Happen When We Pray, it says, as soon as I find the page, here we are. God's got your back. Today's prayer, Holy One, I am thankful that you care about what life is like in my skin. You know what it means to be dehumanized, despised, and denied opportunity. I thank you. You have not left me to endure my burden alone. You are with me and will deliver me from those who seek to abuse me. You will rise to ensure justice in my life. In Jesus' name, amen. Today's reflection. For all of us who have been abused, forced to suffer in silence, know that God is watching. For all of us who endure injustice daily, we're going to talk a little bit about injustice as we go through the interview. Know that God is watching. For all of us who have been exploited by those that have more wealth or power than we do, know that God is watching. For all of us who have had limits placed on our potential because of our skin color or complexion, because of our gender or native tongue, know that God is watching. Not only is God watching, but our Lord will rise up to establish justice to save all the oppressed of the earth. The awesome God of heaven has got your back. That's from the book for today, October 3rd, from What Can Happen When We Pray, from Until Today by Iyanla Van Zant. Iyanla says, I will realize my own worth when I accept certain conditions in my life are like shoes. At some point, they just don't fit me. How long are you going to hold on to the things that are not working in your best interests? Things that are not fulfilling? Things that are no longer productive? How long are you going to deny yourself, your feelings, and your power in order to meet the demands and expectations of others? How long are you going to overdo, overgive, overindulge, trying to convince yourself and others that you are worthy? Perhaps today is as good a day as another to let go of others and grab onto yourself. Perhaps today is the day that you will find the courage and the strength to start being worthy. Life is not about holding on. Life is not about doing what will make others believe you are worthy, nor is it about denying yourself to make others feel better. Isn't it obvious that life is moving on while you seem to be stuck in a holding pattern? Can you not see that you are carrying so much stuff, quote unquote, perhaps so many people that you can hardly move, let alone make any progress? In fact, doesn't it seem at times as if you are being left behind by the very ones you stayed behind to help? Life is about moving through, moving on, growing up and growing through each and every experience. Life is about examination, elimination, and recreation. Perhaps today is the only day you have to examine your life to make some adjustments and changes so that you can take full advantage of the opportunity this day offers. Today sure seems like a good day. Until today, you may not have realized that you can do in one day what you have avoided for doing for so many other days. Just for today, take every opportunity you have to let go of thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, ideas, and people standing in the way of your desire to stand squarely in your worthiness. Today I am devoted to reclaiming my self-worth. That's from the book Until Today by Iyanla Van Zant. I read from both of those books, and interestingly enough, and I say this just about every week, it usually lines up with what the interview is going to be about, because there were some parts in the first reading that's going to squarely line up with the conversation I'm going to have with my guest, who is on the line with me, as I said, calling all the way from the state of Washington, the city of Seattle. And I'm sure when I mentioned rain a couple of minutes ago, he is no stranger to that in Seattle. And that is none other than Bruce Conrad Davis. He's formerly a principal in the Garvey School District, Rosemead, California, and is an educational consultant specializing in management. In 1995, the Reader's Digest Association Incorporated, in collaboration with the National Association of the Secondary School Principal, the National Education Association, the National Association of Elementary School Principals, and the American Federation of Teachers honored Bruce Davis with the American Heroes in Education Award. In 1987, the California State Superintendent of Public Instruction named Ralph Waldo Emerson the school Bruce Davis administrated a California Distinguished School. Oh, I'm going to be talking to you. It was cited for its program excellence, academic achievement, and innovative and successful programs working effectively with students representing diverse ethnic and language backgrounds. Bruce pioneered increasing parent involvement by holding parent meetings in 7 language simultaneous translations. All right now. The Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development produced an award-winning video titled Multicultural Education, profiling a portion of his work. Bruce Davis has served on the editorial advisory boards of Instructor Magazine and the journal Educational Leadership. His book, Stacking the Deck for You, Navigating the Treacherous Waters of School District Politics, ooh, we definitely gonna talk, is available at Amazon and Create Space. His book, How to Involve Parents in a Multicultural School, published by the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, sold over 5,000 copies. Bruce's articles have appeared in numerous professional journals, popular magazines, and newspapers. He's currently writing a book on how to navigate and win at the politics of the education business. And there are many. Politics are steep in education. Bruce has been a speaker on educational topics for the ASCD, the National Elementary Principals Association, the California Association of Bilingual Education, and the Los Angeles County Office of Education. As an adjunct professor, he has taught at the graduate level, school governance for California Lutheran University, and teaching techniques for Pepperdine University. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Reading Circle microphone, Bruce Davis. Bruce, good morning.
Good morning, Mark.
All right. You know, all systems are go, because the last couple of weeks, things here in the studio they're doing upgrades. So things have been like somewhat out of place. So every time I say good morning, I would get blank, nothing back. So it was kind of like the old telecommunications commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Right.
But that was not the case just now. I'm hearing you loud and clear. Everything is coming through. So welcome to the Reading Circle. And again, I'm always appreciative of all my guests, but my guests who
Thank
really,
you for having me.
the ones who sacrifice like you have to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I am like appreciative to the second power. So, okay, we're going to talk about a few things this morning. I'm going to share some information with the listening audience, and then we're going to come back. And since we can talk, I don't know if you remember in the O.J. Simpson case, it was, I'm trying to think, it was F. Lee Bailey. And he went to Mark Furman, and he says, we're going to talk Marine to Marine. Well, this morning, I think we're going to get a chance to talk principal to principal. So, okay, hang on. I'm going to share some information to listening audience. Listening audience, you know what to do. Get on all your social media sites and let someone know that the Reading Circle is on the air and that Bruce Davis is on the air with me.
Hey. What's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. Want to snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? ? We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG, you are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
All right. If you've just joined us, you're listening to The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. My guest this morning is Bruce C. Davis, calling all the way from Seattle. All right, Bruce, I tell you what, this is going to be an interesting interview for me because it is at an intersection of two of my passions, and that is writing and education. And like I said, it intersects between, I'm looking at all the district historical information you've provided as well as your bio that I just read, and certainly the paths do cross. So my first question is going to be okay, the writing piece, is that something you always loved to do when you were in school, or did that come later on, or as you became an administrator or an educator, or where did the whole writing, because I'm noticing you're writing for Essence Magazine and different articles and newspapers. Where did this all begin?
Well, what happened was I like to tell stories, and I'd tell somebody a story, and, they would like it, and I'd tell it again and again, and finally it got to the point where people would say, you've told me that story. And I thought, gee whiz, if I keep telling the same story over and over again, what am I going to do about that? So I thought, well, I'll start writing the stories and sell them, which I did. And I first started writing about the education business, various aspects of it, and then I segued into writing for newspapers and radio, spots for KFWB radio, and then I started writing for black magazines, and Marcia Gillespie at Essence gave me my big break into what are called SWIC magazines, and I wrote then for Essence and for Sepia and for Players, And I've got a new story coming out, Who Owns the Schools, in Diversity Magazine. In fact, the editor-in-chief just called me yesterday to say that it's out in circulation now. So that's how I got started. I got tired of having people tell me that they'd heard the story, so I started writing them and selling them.
Now, where did you, or how did you and Marcia Gillespie's paths cross?
Well, Wilson Riles had become the state superintendent of public instruction for California. He was a black man, and I was writing for newspapers at that time while I was a principal. And I thought, well, I'll see if I can interview him. So I did, and then I got to thinking, well, perhaps a black magazine would be interested. And so I wrote to Essence, and Essence was founded by a man who was a reporter for, a photographer for Life magazine. And Marcia wrote to her, and I said, I've got an idea for a story. She said, well, we'd like to see it. So I wrote it, and she liked it, and she bought it, and then she asked me to do Greg Morris of Mission Impossible, which I did. Interviewed Greg for 4 hours at his home in the Truesdale Estates in Beverly Hills. And that led to writing about Alex Haley, author of Roots and the autobiography of Malcolm X and other things, and interviewed Alex for 9 hours, asked him 160 questions. I researched him for 6 months before I interviewed him. So that's a little bit about that.
And so as you were, because that's one of the wonderful things about being in the media, you just never know who you're going to meet on any given assignment. And I've been doing this, I've been on the show here, been on the air at this particular studio for 14 years, and I've met some wonderful people, both no profile and high profile. I mean, I've spanned the gamut in terms of the people I had the opportunity to talk to on the air. And so I'm looking at the names here. When you start talking Greg Morris, I remember Mission Impossible well. And then Alex Haley, I've read both Roots as well as the autobiography of Malcolm X, as well as I'm looking here when you say Gail Fisher on Mannix. I remember these are all the shows I watched as kids, as a kid. So you have an interesting story about Gail Fisher. What's going on with her?
Well, I had been writing for these magazines for a while, and I thought perhaps Essence would be interested in Gail Fisher. And I called up Marcia, and I said, by the way, Marcia, after she left, she was at Essence for quite a long time, and then she went on to become the editor-in-chief of Ms. Magazine. But I called up Gail, I called up Marcia and asked her if she'd be interested in a story on Gail Fisher. She said she would. So I called Gail Fisher, and would she be interested in a story for us, if I did a story about her for Essence? And she said, sure, that if they put me on the cover. Well, I knew they didn't put known people on the cover. At that time, they only used models, unidentified models. But I thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try. So I called Marcia back, and I said, she'll go for it. She'll let me have the interview if you'll put her on the cover. And she said, Bruce, we don't put known people on the cover. And I said, yeah, I know, okay. All right, so before I called Gail Fisher back, I called Sepia, and I said, if I got an interview with, would you put her on, with Gail Fisher, would you put her on the cover? They said, sure, we'll put her on the cover. So then I called Fisher back, and I said, I can't get you on the cover of Essence, but I can get you on the cover of Sepia. She said, I don't want to be on the cover of Sepia. And I thought, holy smokes, Stevie Wonder had been on the cover of Sepia the month before. So I never got the interview, and I really wanted to meet her.
Right. Now, was it uncommon for Essence and these African-American or black magazines to have white authors? Was that uncommon, or was it common?
Well, I don't think it was at all, because they didn't care what color you were, and they shouldn't care what color I was.
Absolutely.
They didn't care what color I was. All they cared about was whether or not the story was any good.
Absolutely.
But if you want to shut down a conversation, and I do this sometimes, I'll get on a plane and I just don't want to be bothered, and the person next to me said, well, what do you do? The way to shut them up is to say, Well, I write for magazines, and then they say, "Oh, what magazines?" I said, "Black magazines." And usually they're a white person, and they don't want to talk about that.
They don't want to talk. Now, that's interesting.
All the editors of any magazine or newspaper want is a good story.
That's absolutely right, and they could care less who it's coming from, or the color, or the race, or the gender, or whatever, as long as the story is going to sell magazines.
That's right.
Absolutely. But, I mean, the list that you have here, as I'm reading through here, like I said, is fascinating, because most of them, if not all of them, I saw at some point in some TV show as I was coming up. So I see here you said you're a strong advocate for social justice, because it's
yes.
What I find interesting is that I have studied the civil rights movement back and forth, up and down, and many people erroneously believe that the movement was only black people in there, when truth of the matter is it was interspersed with white and black and everything else.
That's right.
So your interest in social justice, how did that come about?
Well, I was a very, very little boy, and I was living at that time. I grew up in two places, actually, on a cattle ranch in South Dakota, and with my mother and my stepfather in Baltimore, Maryland. And I was a very little boy, and I went into the kitchen, and we had a woman working for the family then named Bertha Lawrence, and as a maid, and a gardener, Oscar, and they were sitting there in the kitchen, and they were eating their lunch, and they were using chipped glasses and chipped plates. And I said, don't use those plates and glasses, because you might cut yourself or cut your lip. And they said, no, that's okay. So I went to my mother and I said, Mommy, Bertha and Oscar are using chipped dishes and they might hurt themselves. And she said, that's okay. Those are their dishes. We have our dishes and they have their dishes. And I thought, that's not right. What's this business? I mean, I was 3 or 4 years old.
Right. But you could just feel it if something wasn't right.
That didn't seem right at all to me. Anyhow, I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. I lived in fear 24/7. My stepfather was complete, and something was definitely wrong with him, and we were just terrified all the time. And Bertha really saved me. She became like my mother, because my mother was an entertainer, and she was gone quite a bit.
Right.
Bertha basically raised me, and she meant a great deal to me. And in fact, I told her if she died before I did, I'd speak at her funeral, and I did. And so I think that made a big difference. And then when I was in college in South Dakota, I saw discrimination against the Sioux Indians. And then I taught in Riverton, Wyoming, in a public school, which was right in the middle of an Indian reservation. So I had a lot of experience with Ogallala and Arapaho. And then I was teaching in California, and for 5 years in San Bernardino, California, and I was all the kids were coming from a housing project, and I got to know the parents and quite well. And I'm a very strong believer in that I'm working for the parents. I'm working for the parents and their children.
Right.
That they employ me.
That's correct. They are customers.
And they're my customers.
That's right. They are our customers. That's exactly the view we ought to have. That's it.
And I'm working for them. So later on, I moved to the Garvey School District, where I was a principal, and my last assignment, all of our notices went home in 4 languages. All of our meetings were done in simultaneous, seven-language simultaneous translations. And I spent my summer vacation, when I went to this school for the first time, this particular school, I spent my whole summer vacation going out to all of the homes to meet the people and tell them that I was working for them, and that they were paying me very well, and what did they think, and how should things be. And so that's the way we ran the school.
All right, if you've just joined us, my guest is Bruce Davis. I'm going to share some more information with your listening audience, but you know the deal. Get on all your social media sites. Get on your phone and text somebody. Get on your computers and tweet and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and whatever else you have in terms of your social media. Get on there and let somebody know that they need to tune in now to gobrave.org. And if they're in the northern New Jersey area where I am, they can tune in on the radio as well, FM radio WP 88.7 FM.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your basement. There's a pair of overalls that overall you're not so into anymore. A perfectly good laptop that hasn't seen your lap in months. And even more stuff. But still no jobs? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed. And they're the stuff inside your stuff. Even inside that winter coat that moved with you to Phoenix. Our job is to unlock those jobs. And it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. A message from Goodwill and the Ad Council.
This is The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. We come to you live, as I said, each Saturday morning from 6 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time to 7 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time. And my guest is calling in on Pacific Time. So you figure whatever time it is here on your clock, you subtract 3 hours to that, and that's what time it is on Bruce's clock. And we're talking about writing, we're talking about race relations, we're talking about education, talking a little bit about all of that this morning as Bruce has experienced all of it. And Bruce, it was interesting as you were explaining this story about as a little child not feeling that the differentiation between the dishes, and that was a small example, was because, as you know, during that time frame, there was separation between everything, what bathrooms you could go to, what water fountains you can drink in, what doors you can go in and out of. And in your particular house, you were saying how even the dishes were something separate. And then ultimately became an educator. So my hunch is, or my guess is, your feelings at that time as a child kind of drove you toward education, because I'm not saying that it can occur or it didn't occur in terms of racism being in education, but if there ever was a place for racism to not be, it would be in education, because you deal with so many diverse people.
Well, it didn't actually push me towards education. My first year of college, I studied agriculture because I was going to take over my grandfather's ranch.
Okay.
And so I was studying livestock judging and crops and agronomy and horticulture and so forth. But I didn't have a car. Excuse me. And I was in South Dakota, and it was a mile and a half downtown to get a meal on weekends because there wasn't any meal available at the college, and I was tired of walking through the cold, so I transferred to a college where I would be able to use a car from time to time, and it turned out to be a teacher's college.
Okay.
So I became a teacher because I didn't have a car. And I could have stayed in South Dakota and made $2,800 a year, but I wasn't stupid. I went to Wyoming where I could make $4,000
there
a year.
There you go. Now, when you were doing the writing for the magazines, were you teaching at that time as well, or were you in the school system then? And
when I started writing for the magazines, I was a principal.
So you were already in education as the principal, and you were writing for the magazines. That's
right.
Oh, okay. I call people like you and many others I've had the chance to chat, and even myself, Renaissance people, because there are, and I say that because, again, erroneously, there are many people who think you can only do one thing. And my view on that is just the opposite. I think life is too short. We need to try to do as many things as we can for the time that we're here on the planet.
I think you're right.
So people ask me, like, you get up at 4:30 on Saturday morning to go do a radio show? I said, yeah, I do. It's a unique opportunity. For one, I get a chance to meet some great people. Even though it's not a paid gig, how many people can say that they're actually being heard around the world on the radio? So yeah, I do. Right. So, I do. I've been an adjunct professor as well, the principal, teacher, jet engine mechanic, marketing manager, all through the line. But it's just, I don't think folks like the reading I had this morning, if you feel like you're stuck in that one thing and you want to get out, get out. But some people, they will stick with whatever they're in and whether they like it or not. And that's just not me. So when I hear somebody like you say, no, I was a principal and I was writing for Essence Magazine, I'm like, yeah, all right. So what has been some of your more interesting in terms of, because we'll do it this way, in terms of what was some of your more interesting interviews from the writing, and then some of your more interesting stories? Because as we said before we went on the air, and as I said, we're like F. Lee Bailey talking Marine to Marine, we're going to talk principal to principal. What are some of your more interesting principal stories?
Well, as a principal, I think I said with you earlier, probably only people with beliefs what happens to principals are other principals. But I remember one time I had two little boys. Right after I became a principal, actually, two little boys were sent into my office. They got in a fight. They were second grade boys. I said, "What'd you get in a fight about?" He called me the Z word. I said, "What?" He said, he called me the Z word.
The Z as in zebra word?
Yeah.
Z. No, I haven't heard the Z word.
Did you call him the Z word? Yeah, but he called me the Z word first. No, you called me the Z word first. All right, I said, wait a minute. What did he call you, a zebra? And they giggled. And I said, what is the Z word? I can't say it. My mother would kill me. How about you? What's the Z word? I can't say it either. My mother would kill me. I said, well, you called each other the Z word. I worked on these guys for 20 minutes trying to find out what the Z word was, and I kept trying to think of Z words that I could, say, did you call him this or that, and I couldn't think of anything other than zebra.
Right.
And I never did find out what the Z word was. So if any of your listeners know what the Z word is, I hope they will call in and let you know, and then you pass it on to me, because I'm still wondering what that is.
I am perplexed as well on that one, because I know I have kids call each other the B word and the N word and the F word and all that, but I have never heard of the Z word.
Well, I think probably my best story would be when I was a vice principal. I was a vice principal for 1 year, and I'd never worked with this particular principal before. He had two schools, and I was the vice principal of one, and he would run back and forth between the two schools. And it was my second day in the district, my second day of working with this man, and he called me into his office, and he said, he had a real rough voice, and he said, Davis, I'm going to show you something. You might learn something. I said, okay, So he called a couple little boys in. They got in a fight, and I'm standing beside him, kind of behind his desk, and he's talking to them and about the fight and everything. And I see him reaching down into his right bottom drawer. They can't see what he's doing, but from my vantage point, I can see it. And I don't know this guy. I've never worked with him before, and I don't know what's in his desk. And he pulls out this big paddle. They still can't see it. And all of a sudden, he brings that paddle down on top of the desk and just shouts at him, now stop this and get out of here. And I thought, whoa, he scared me, and I could see it coming. So the next year, I never saw this man paddle anybody, and I know that he personally would be opposed to paddling anybody, as I am also. But the next year, they make me a principal, and they assign me to this very old school that was built in 1927. And I go into my office, which was about the size of two phone booths. Your listeners might not know what a phone booth is nowadays. But anyhow, so I looked at my desk drawers to see if I had a paddle. Well, I didn't have a paddle. So I thought, well, that's what's the deal here? You got to have a paddle. You're not going to use it, but you got to have one, maybe.
That's right.
So I went around the school and I found some old ping pong paddles. So I got some of them and I put them in my bottom right-hand drawer, just like he'd had a paddle in his bottom right-hand drawer. Now, before we go any further with this, we have to understand what a nanosecond is.
Right.
A nanosecond is a very, very short period of time.
That's right.
So anyhow, I've got those paddles in there, and now I'm waiting for something to happen. Well, pretty soon they send in a couple of little boys that got in a fight. And so I thought I'll just do what Mr. Gaywicky did and see if I can scare these guys into behaving.
That's right.
So as we're talking along, nice and soft and quiet and everything, I'm reaching down into my bottom right-hand drawer, and I've got a hold of one of those ping pong paddles, and all of a sudden I bring it up, and I smack my desk with the ping pong paddle. And I look down at the paddle, and the paddle is gone. But the handle is still in my hand. And I look at the little boys, and I wonder, where did the paddle go? And they seem to be looking up towards the ceiling. So I start to look up towards the ceiling when the paddle comes down on top of my head and clunks me edge first.
Oh, you got hit with the paddle.
I've now brained myself with my own paddle. And the boys are trying not to laugh, and I'm trying not to rub my head, so I just asked them to get out of there. And now those boys would be quite old, and I bet they have a wonderful time telling people about how their principal hit himself with his own paddle.
I'll bet they did. But, I laugh at that story, and hopefully none of my current students are listening. But what people really don't understand is that teaching is part acting.
But I think that's true.
It really is. I mean, there are times I really put on a show for, I was not really mad. I mean, even though I could have been mad, but I wasn't really mad, but I wanted them to think I was mad. And so
right.
A lot of times we put on a really good show, just as you said, just to kind of try to scare some of the behavior back into them. So I can truly relate to the paddle story, the gentleman that brought you in and slammed the paddle on the desk, because, that's what you do. Sometimes I used to, when I was in the classroom, but and I always tell teachers this and folks who are in education in terms of if kids don't know anything else, and I'm looking at the commentary from Wilson Riles that says, I call upon Bruce Davis for his advice and counsel because of his sensitivity, insight, and success as a school administrator. And that caught my eye as I was talking to you, because if kids don't know anything else, they know sincerity. So there would be things I would get away with because the kids knew that I was sincere that some other teachers didn't. I would take chalk sometime and throw it up against the blackboard and it would explode. And the kids they'd sit there and they'd tremble, but they never went to tell the principal. The teacher next door would try to do the same thing, and they'd immediately run to the principal. So kids know sincerity, and as I saw that commentary about sensitivity, that's what it takes in this business.
That's true. That's true.
You were about to say something as I was reading the commentary from
Well,
Wilson.
I'm just saying, you've got your principal and you've got listeners out there that in 1985, Grant Peterson did the definitive research on the elementary principalship. And he found that the elementary principal in 1985, and that's before computers and text messaging and everything, got 50 new tasks an hour.
Oh,
50 new tasks an hour. Now, today, he could take care of those tasks in seconds, minutes, hours, days, never, but 50 tasks an hour. Now, today, with text messaging and computers and so forth, the principal's getting many more than that.
Correct.
And your listeners could ask themselves, in what kind of work does a person have to deal with 50 new tasks an hour, or maybe today 100 new tasks an hour?
That's true.
It's very demanding work.
It
salute
really
you for your
is.
efforts.
Well, thank you. And that's not an exaggeration. It really is not. And that's a perfect segue into the question I'm going to ask you about the book you've already written, as well as the one, either, because I'm not sure how old or current the bio is, but either you finished the second book on politics, or you're still writing it, but you have the Stacking the Deck for Navigating the Treacherous Waters of School District Politics.
That book is finished. It's out there. How to, Stacking the Deck for You, how to survive the politics of the education business.
Okay, so that was out as well.
Tremendous amount of politics.
Yes, it is. And we're going to talk about this. I'm going to share some more information with the listening audience. And when we come back, that's where I'm going to delve right into. But you are not exaggerating at all in terms of the tasks. And, I share with one of the things I tell the teachers whenever we're in a staff meeting, whenever they get to complaining about something, I tell them, look, I know what it's like to be in the teacher seat because I had to come through the teaching ranks to become a principal. But what you don't know is what it's like to be in the principal seat. So while I know both seats, you only know one. And I try to share them with that all the time. And what you said just now is absolutely on point in terms of, between the phone calls and the emails and the kids dropping in the office and the parents dropping in the office and the teachers dropping in the office. And in our particular case, we're a state takeover district. So I have the state of New Jersey dropping in the office and central office calling. And so you're right. You're absolutely right. So I'm going to share this information with the audience, and we will come right back to talk a little bit about the politics within education.
Hi, my name is Stan Myers, and I'm here at FM 88.7. I do a jazz show called Just a Mood. And if you like the music, anything from Louis to Lester Bowie, I'm your man. That's Sunday afternoons, 3 to 6. Looking to hear from you, okay?
You are listening to The Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. My guest is Bruce Davis. He is a fellow school administrator as well as a fellow writer. And I say fellow because I participate in those same activities, for lack of a better description when I say activities. And right before I shared the promo with you, we were talking about politics in education. Now, many people, and again, this is my third example of how I believe people think, and then some people have told me, erroneously believe that politics are not in education. And I may have been one of those people, and I say that because, Bruce, I actually came out of the corporate world. My first 15 years of serious employment was in the corporate world. I worked for AT&T. I was with them for 15 years, but my first love was always education. So finally, as I was saying earlier, I'm the type of person that once I really do get fed up with something, I will leave it. I finally had enough of the corporate world, and I wanted to go back to my first love, which was teaching, and I did that after 15 years there. And I'm saying all that to say was I had gotten used to the corporate politics. Going into education, it didn't dawn on me that the political field was just as bad, if not worse, because I just didn't associate politics and education. But now, as I've been in education again for 15 more years, because now it's been 15 years since I've been in education, the politics in education are steep. Tell me a little bit about, what your findings have been as you wrote Stacking the Deck for You, Navigating the Treacherous Waters of School District Politics.
Well, I think that the typical educator, as a teacher and then as a principal, really at first doesn't think anything about the politics. But in a typical school district, you have a school board and a superintendent. Let's say that you have 5 school board members, and the superintendent wants to keep all 5 of those people happy. And when there's an issue, he wants a 5-0 vote. If he gets a 4-1 vote, he's not too happy. And if he gets a 3-2 vote, he's less happy. So he wants to keep those people happy, and that's his primary responsibility. In his mind, he thinks, to keep 5 people happy. Otherwise, he or she is going to lose their job. So that's their primary concern. So now the people under them, he wants them to do things that will help him keep his job.
That's correct.
and he doesn't want them to do anything that would cause a difficulty in that way. So he's always keeping that in mind. I think, when a person becomes a Navy SEAL, they probably, at least they would probably feel that they're physically strong before they enter that program.
Right.
And so they at least have some physical prowess going for them. But in the school business, the typical educator is not steeped in politics. And he's got to negotiate the politics of the school district, at the administrative at the district office level, the superintendent, assistant superintendents, and so forth. And he also has to deal with the politics of his own school.
Correct.
Principals get brilliant ideas. One of the reasons they get brilliant ideas is they're getting those so many tasks a day, and they got to figure out how to deal with that. So they get brilliant ideas, but a lot of those brilliant ideas are not well thought of by the district office, or the district office doesn't want to try one of their ideas because they have enough on their plate in their view.
Right.
So they try to control the principals. And I say in my book that if you have a brilliant idea, and I mean you really are definitely sure that it's a brilliant idea, run it by the district office to see if they would like to have it done district-wide. And if they don't want it done district-wide for whatever reason, they're just too lazy, or they just don't want to bother for some reason, then just go ahead and do it anyhow. The
That's
hell
right.
is what the district office thinks.
That's right.
You know, I mean, take your brilliant idea and do it. I went to a conference and I saw how you could get classified employees and certificated employees to work together in a more cooperative fashion. So I went to the district and I said, I've been to this conference and I've got this wonderful I've seen this wonderful idea on how to do this. They said, yeah, well, okay. And I said, we could do this district-wide, and everybody would be happy, and things would be better. So I just said, the hell with them. I went back and did it myself.
That's right. Did it in your own school. That's right.
It worked beautifully.
Absolutely.
I got an idea. To call homes on weekends and congratulate children. Congratulate parents on how well their children had done. I was going to call 44 homes every weekend. And people thought I was nuts. I was going to do it on my own dime and time.
Right.
But I did it. And in 15 years, I made 25,000 phone calls to parents on my own dime and time, praising their children and the teachers that were teaching them. And that's what made the huge difference in what our school did. It was in a very low socioeconomic area, and with lots of crime and violence. And as you said, we became a California Distinguished School in 2 years.
And see, that's why I said whenever I got to that part, I said, we're definitely going to talk, because the school that I was assigned to 2 years ago, now I'm in my third season, is one of the lowest performing schools in the state of New Jersey, and my assignment was to go there and turn it around. So as I'm reading that, that's why, okay, so you've done already where I'm looking to go. And just hearing just now what you said, and I'm not one for reinventing the wheel. I'm kind of like Steve Jobs. I just finished reading his book not long ago where he said he didn't have a problem stealing. That idea that you just gave me, not that there's anything new, but just the thought of, wait a minute, you know what? Just to be focused and determined to get through X number of calls over a period of time, because I'm almost just listening to that. I know that's what helped you become that distinguished school, because that constant praise, and they wanted to keep that.
But see, that happened because in that home that I grew up in, you could have become president of the universe, and it would not have been enough. They would say, well, it's no more than we would have expected. And I wanted to give these little kids praise for what they've done.
Right. And you're my second guest. You're my second guest in 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, my guest last week was Lisa Lieberman Wang. As a matter of fact, I'll be seeing Lisa today because she's actually doing a workshop in my area. But she said, in terms of what kind of molded and shaped her, was that same experience with her father. That, like, no matter what she did, it just wasn't good enough, even if she came home with straight A's. And so God forbid she had the B or the C or the D. So you're my second guest in 2 weeks that kind of had that same experience. And you're so right in terms of, because one of the things that we're doing in my school as well is constantly trying to acknowledge the kids for doing something right. And it doesn't even have to be something academic. It could be like they said thank you, or they said please, just something, because again, I'm in a low socioeconomic area, the crime-ridden part of the city, and most of the time what the kids and the parents for that matter hear is a bunch of negativity. So I'm sure if your school was anything close to mine and now you were coming at them with positivity and praise, I'm sure that changed the game.
Well, it did change the game. And you think about it like this, it's Saturday afternoon, the phone rings, and the mother answers the phone, and she said, "Oh, Mr. Davis, blah, and blah, 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 blah." And she hangs up, and the dad says, "Who was that?" "That was the principal of the school calling." "Principal of the school calling Saturday afternoon? What did he do now?" "Well, he didn't do anything wrong. He's calling to praise
That's
us
exactly right.
for what our child did." He's calling to praise us because what Jose did?
Right.
Yes, that's what he's doing. Well, see, if you make 44 of those calls every weekend, I had 22 classrooms, and I made 2 calls per classroom.
Right.
If you make 44 calls per weekend, 44 people, 44 kids now feel better about themselves. 44 sets of low-income socioeconomic people feel good about themselves.
Right.
And now they're going to get behind the school and get behind their kid.
Absolutely. I had on my signboard on the outside of school the other day, education is about making life better for others. And there were some people, people actually didn't quite make the connection between education, because a lot of times we may say that in church, or we may say that, but to tag it to education. I said, yeah, it is. That's what education is all about. It's about, because what we're doing now, it makes life better for the family now as well as in the future.
Well, there were many times when I got tired of doing that, but I kept on doing it because I knew it was important for those kids.
Absolutely. You know, that's the beauty of education for me. You never know the life that you're touching. And sometimes you may not know till 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. A child may come back and say, you know, it was something that you said when I was in your office, or something you told me in the hallway, or that phone call you made that really turned me around. Or if it had not been for you, I wouldn't be this. It's those.
Well, yeah, and you know, a lot of these, some of these kids are now adults, and they're connected with me on Facebook.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. But it is a feeling. I mean, if you want to talk about leaving legacies, that's what education does. And I'm not saying you can't leave a legacy if you're in business, but in education, there is no. I mean, Bruce, when I tell you, I have kids. Like I said, because I was very sincere, even if I came across as stern, they received it. Now, with kids, the kids really do want discipline, but they're not going to tell you that.
That's
kids,
right.
they really do want someone to try to keep them in check, but they're not going to tell you that. But years down the line, 5 or 10 years, when they see you on their jobs or in the street or whatever, they say, you know what, I had a young man tell me, you were the only one that whenever you talk to me, I would really kind of listen to. Everybody else, I ain't pay no mind to, but if you said it, and at the time, I didn't think he was even listening to me. So I told the kid, I said, well, oh, good. I'm glad to hear that, because I didn't think you were listening to me either. He said, no, out of all the teachers, you were the one. But that's, I'm saying all that to say, that's how we make a difference.
That's right.
And you may not even realize it until, like I said, years later. But there's one story that I share all the time that I was in the K-8 school at the time when I was teaching, and I always was in charge of graduation. And I had the 8th graders, and it was just 2 kids. There was a little boy and a little girl. Matter of fact, the boy's name was Knowledge. And that literally was his first name, was Knowledge. And he was anything but knowledge. But in any event, he and his little girlfriend were playing around during graduation practice. And I told them during the dress rehearsal, if you play around in this rehearsal, you will not march. Now, you will still get your diploma, but you are not going to march across that stage. Well, he challenged my bluff. He took me up on my offer, and him and his little girlfriend played around. And I stormed into the principal's office, and I had perfect attendance at the time. And I told the principal, I said, let me tell you something right now. If you allow those 2 students to march across that stage, I will be absent on that day of graduation. So the principal was like, hold on now, calm down. We'll work this out. So we called the parents, and we told them what we were going to do, that the children can sit with you during graduation. They'll still get their diploma, but they're going to sit with you. They're not going up on stage with the rest of the kids. And the parents agreed. Mm-hmm. So we went through that whole thing, and after the graduation is over, I'm back in the classroom, and the kid walks in the door. And I said, Knowledge, how you doing? What's going on? He says, I'm going to miss him. I said, miss what? I'm going to miss your speeches. That's what he said. I'm going to miss your speech. I'm going to miss the things that you said to me. And I said, Knowledge, hold on a minute. I said, I just kept you from walking across that stage for graduation in front of all your friends and family, and you're telling me you're going to miss what I was saying? He says, yeah. That story has always stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
That it made that even when I didn't think I was having an impact, somebody was listening. And another exercise I do, like I said, I was just saying I was always in charge of graduation. We would have some free time or some downtime. And so I'd always say, all right, kids, you know what? We're going to take these few minutes. You have the opportunity to imitate or mock or, like I said, imitate anybody in the building, whether it's teacher, principal, janitor, whoever. And Bruce, when I tell you those kids could imitate us to the letter, they could. That let me know they're watching.
I believe that's true.
They had my walk. They had my talk. I've heard them do other teachers to the point wherein if they did that on a blindfold, you wouldn't know if it was the teacher or them.
That's right. They do that.
But they look and they listen. Even when we think they're not.
That's right.
So that's why I mean, just listening to you talking about them 44 calls, I know that's what, if nothing else, plus I'm quite sure if you were doing those 44 calls, you were doing a lot of other things right as well to turn the school into a distinguished school. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
So we're down to our last few minutes. If you've joined us, I'm looking at now stacking the deck because these are downloadable. I see they're on Amazon. Are they in the digital version?
Yes, they are.
Oh, well, you can rest assured before today is out, I will have Stacking the Deck for you navigating the treacherous waters of school district politics. I will definitely have that one. And then your other book was How to Involve Parents in a Multicultural School. Right. And I know we're down to the last couple of minutes, but what are some of the challenges in a multicultural school versus involving the parents in, I guess, for lack of a better term, homogeneous school?
Well, yeah. We were doing it in 4 languages. It went home, we'd send notices home in 4 languages, and our meetings were done in 7-language simultaneous translation. But you also had to get the various disparate groups together. And a quick story about that. The teacher said, as the population of the school changed, she said, I think we should do away with the Christmas program. I said, why is that? She said, because we're getting a lot of people that don't celebrate Christmas anymore. I said, well, I'll ask the Parent Advisory Committee what they think about that. Well, that was about 60, 70 people that would come to the meeting.
Right.
And all the people from Mexico City would sit in one area. All the people from Shanghai would sit in a different area. All the people from Beijing would sit in a completely different area.
Wow.
And so forth. And then we would have these things, the meeting translated. So I presented that one of the teachers thought that we should not have the Christmas program anymore. And a man who spoke Fukienese, a Chinese dialect, got up and said that absolutely not, that he came to this country and he wanted to have what they have in this country, to not change it in any way. And a lady from Mexico City, after that got translated into Spanish, got up and said, do you really mean that? He said, yes, I do. And from then on, they all sat together and we kept right on having the Christmas program because all these people from all these different countries wanted to have it just like it's always been in this country.
There you go. I mean, it really is. That's what I mean. The whole, and I was young through the civil rights movement. I shared this story a couple of weeks ago as well. I was born and raised in New Jersey. My mother was from North Carolina. My father's from Virginia. So in the summers, a lot of time we would drive back to either Virginia or North Carolina. I thought everyone prepared their food and everything to have in the car with them to eat as we drove or rode. I thought everybody did that, but I didn't realize we were having to do that because we could not stop at the various restaurants or stations along I-95. I didn't know that till I was grown because that was back during the time of the segregation and so forth and so on. But it is I have never, and I do understand the logistics of it. I do understand the psychology of it, but I've never understood it just from the humanistic standpoint of what difference is it in terms of what color you are, gender, so forth and so on, because we all bleed red. And so I never quite understood the white-black thing, even though I understand the power thing. Whoever's in power want to keep power. I understand all of that. But it just, and I'm saying all that to say, again, as I said, in schools, you have a little bit of everybody.
Yes.
And you really do have to remember that you have a little bit of everybody. And while like I say, in your case, they all rallied around Christmas.
Yes, they did.
And in some cases, they may say, okay, we want Christmas, but we want to celebrate ours too. Okay, that's fine as well, because that's what we do in my district. We're off just about every other week for one day or another for one group or another, which, hey, we're acknowledging everybody. So
sure.
You can work it both ways. Everybody, because we learn from each other.
Yes.
And that's where, the whole racism, prejudice thing, I don't quite get. It's like, rather than looking at the differences as an advantage or something to celebrate, we look at the differences as something negative, when in reality, they're not.
No, I agree with you.
So, all right, I said we were down to the last few minutes. So what I do in that last few minutes, Bruce, is I give the author the opportunity to promote. In other words, you can promote all your books, any of your magazine articles that people might be able to pull up online or what have you. You get a chance to do that, and you can say anything with the exception of the dollar amount. Anything short of the dollar amount, you are more than welcome to say if there are any book signings, if you're going to be anywhere, any workshops, anything you'd like to say with the exception of price. This is your opportunity to promote.
Well, I think the book "Stacking the Deck" for you is a critical book, but only for school administrators or people who are interested in how to do politics. That book is for school administrators. The other book, "How to Involve Parents in a Multicultural Society," or multicultural school, I should say, that particular book would be good for school principals, teachers, and parents, because parents could read that book and go to their school and say, we ought to try this, we ought to try that, to get more people involved.
Right.
Because it's critical to have the parents involved. And if you treat them like they're customers and like you're working for them,
right,
they will get involved.
Absolutely.
And I think the Stacking the Deck is for school administrators, and the other one is for parents and teachers and school administrators.
All right. Well, again, I thank you profusely for rising oh so early on your side of the country to join us on this side of the country, which is still early. It's interesting that the Jets and I think it's the Dolphins. I think that's the game that's going to be on tomorrow morning. They're actually playing in London tomorrow. So the game is going to be on 9:30 in the morning our time, which is like 6:30 in the morning your time. And all the football commentators are excited, saying, yes, we're going to have football all day long, 9:30 on. So the same thing here in terms of the time zone differences. While it's 7 o'clock here, it's about 4 o'clock there. And so for somebody over in London, I guess it's about 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon there. And they can listen, because if they get to the computer and tune into gobrave.org, they can tune in as well. But I thank you, and I congratulate you and applaud you. Anyone in education, I absolutely applaud, because, as I said, we do make a difference, even though a lot of times we're maligned. A lot of times folks tease us and try to say that we don't work because we're off holidays and summers and this, that, and the other. Not realizing, one, you need that downtime, but secondly, we really are touching the world. I end every meeting with my teachers with, teachers make all other professions possible.
That's right.
And because I tell them all the time, I said, I don't care if you're the president, the prime minister, neurophysicist, I don't care, astrophysicist, astronaut, they had a teacher.
That's true.
Everyone had a teacher of some sort, one way or the other. So I end all of my staff meetings with, teachers make every other profession possible. So with that being said, I thank you so much. Like I said, before the day is out, I will definitely have Stacking the Deck downloaded in my Kindle, and we'll begin reading that, because the politics are steep in education, and I'd love to learn how to navigate some of them even better. So with that
tells you exactly how to do it.
All right. Well, like I said, I will be reading it. That's for sure. Well,
all right.
Thank you. And for the listening audience, Bruce has been with us since 6 our time, and he has interviewed the likes of Greg Morris, Alex Haley, Gail. You didn't get the Gail interview, but you almost had the Gail Fisher interview, Sir Malcolm Richards, as well as with Marcia Gillespie, with Essence Magazine, as well as he was a school principal, and not only a school principal, it turned his school into a distinguished school. So thank you for taking the time to speak with us this morning, and we will be in touch.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure being with you.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care now.